In this episode of the Brain Fit podcast, I speak with Dr. Josh Helman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in helping people prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease. In this episode, he shares with you prescription drugs you want to avoid because they increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease, the foods you want to avoid because they increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease, the steps you want to take to prevent Alzheimer's disease, and he shares about a cutting-edge new treatment that is currently helping reverse Alzheimer's disease in our medical clinic. We're working together in a medical clinic. We are reversing Alzheimer's disease in our patients. He shares with you how we are doing that. So bring your notepad. This is a fantastic interview about how to prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease with Dr. Josh Helman. Welcome. My name's Robert Love. I'm a neuroscientist, and I specialize in helping people prevent Alzheimer's disease with science. We have a delightful treat for you. You might have just learned about our work at the Reversing Alzheimer's Summit, or maybe you've been following our work for a couple of years now. I want to introduce Dr. Josh Helman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard. Dr. Josh has 2 degrees in biochemistry, so he's very smart with molecules and biochemistry. He worked as an ER doctor. And then he started to specialize in helping people basically reverse dementia or dementia-like symptoms. And he's been in that field for approximately 9 years. Dr. Josh and I met almost 3 years ago, where we did our first summit together, the Truth About Alzheimer's Summit. And then a year and a half ago, we established a medical clinic in Florida where we are reversing Alzheimer's with a new FDA clinical trial drug. Prior to that, we were helping people reverse Alzheimer's and memory loss, primarily with the Dale Bredesen protocol, which is, who knows Dale Bredesen? He's a personal hero of mine, great scientist, great medical doctor. And so Dr. Josh is on the cutting edge. He's on the cutting edge of medicine, specifically for the treatment of Alzheimer's prevention and Alzheimer's reversal and other forms of dementia. He goes to the cutting edge conferences, and we are very honored and privileged to have him here with you. And so I want you to take notes, but basically I'm going to be asking him some major questions that you have, so that way you can get the information that you and your family need to take healthy steps to prevent Alzheimer's disease. We want everyone to prevent Alzheimer's. And for those of you who are experiencing memory loss, we want to help you reverse that memory loss. So Dr. Josh, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, what a great audience, and what a great summit. And this is amazing.
Yeah, I still appreciate you being part of the summit. That was great. So Dr. Josh, let's talk about what are the biggest causes of Alzheimer's disease from your perspective as a medical doctor and having worked with lots of patients and really having studied this.
Yeah, and I think that's the key part of the question is causes, because in every case, there are about 30 to 200 root causes. And I know that can sound overwhelming, but it's a complicated field. So to pick some of them, an important one would be genetics. The number one cause from the studies actually turns out to be sleep, not enough deep N3 sleep. Then you've got blood sugar, which some people might call type 3 diabetes. And then you've got toxins, infections, hormone dysregulation, and the list goes on. And
so inflammation is a major risk factor that a lot of these have in common. So let me ask this just really quickly. Poor quality sleep, does that increase inflammation?
Definitely, yes.
High blood sugar, does that increase inflammation?
Yes, it does.
Do toxins?
Yes.
Infections?
Yes.
Hormone dysregulation, does that increase inflammation?
Definitely, yes.
So amongst all the major risk factors that you've mentioned, all of them increase inflammation.
True.
That's astounding. So I want all of you to write this down. And then inflammation, does inflammation affect our risk of other chronic diseases?
It does, whether we're talking about cancer, heart disease, joint disease, the answer is yes.
And so I want you to really get this down. Inflammation is a major root cause of Alzheimer's disease and other chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, many forms of cancer. And so we really want you to get your health in order by getting better sleep, lowering your blood sugar, reducing toxins, infections, regulating your hormones, all those things, lowering your inflammation. Oh, what about stress? Does stress increase inflammation?
No question, yes.
And is stress a major risk factor of Alzheimer's disease?
It definitely is. And often that's like the coup de grace. That's like the final thing that pushes someone over, whether it's stress involving work or family, et cetera.
How many of you know someone who got sick after a really stressful event. Maybe they had some sort of traumatic issue. Maybe someone died in their family or someone got sick, a spouse got sick, they had a divorce, lost a child. A lot of us have seen that. I had a roommate of mine. He developed Parkinson's-like symptoms after his daughter was taken away from him in a court case. I'm missing some of the facts there, but that's basically what happened. And it was after that time that he had incredible stress and his Parkinson's symptoms started. And he's had severe Parkinson's since then. And so stress can really, I love how you said that, Dr. Josh, stress can tip us over into the disease framework. And so we want you to understand that by fixing these things, you not only help reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease, but you reduce your risk of pretty much most chronic diseases. It reduces the risk of heart disease. It reduces the risk of stroke. It reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes and so many other things. Isn't that right, Dr. Josh?
100% right.
And so really write this down. Reduce inflammation, reduce the risk of almost every chronic disease. And these are just some of the things we can do. Let's talk foods. A lot of people are interested in foods. What foods are good for the brain? And then what foods increase inflammation? Let's talk foods that increase inflammation first, and then what foods are healthy for the brain. Because I believe food is medicine or food is poison. And so I want people to understand what are in those different categories.
Right. So an easy one that increases inflammation of the brain are foods that have added salt and sugar, processed foods. You want to stay away from that standpoint. And the foods that decrease inflammation are the foods that are high in antioxidants. And that turns out to be things like plants, so fruits, vegetables, whole grains, except for wheat. Gluten actually increases inflammation. So yeah, this can be, sometimes you have to look at it under a magnifying glass, but in general terms, most plants will decrease inflammation and most processed foods will increase inflammation.
And then oils, what's your thought on oils?
Yeah, so with oils, I think it depends. With omega-3, definitely will decrease inflammation. Omega-6, which is added to a lot of processed foods, omega-6s will actually increase inflammation. So you actually have to look at the details.
So what type of oils have omega-3s and what type of oils have omega-6s? I want to be clear here. So these are both omegas, but omega-6s can cause inflammation. So we want to avoid those. And omega-3s can reduce inflammation. And by the way, they provide building blocks for your brain. So omega-3 is really good for your brain. So what are some of those good oils and bad oils?
Sure. So you can find omega-3 in algae, in flax, in chia, in fish. But omega-6s are a lot of the added oils, a lot of the seed oils have a lot of the omega-6s. And, it's really sad that most people in the standard American diet get much more omega-6 than omega-3.
If you or someone you love has Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, I want you to know there is hope. Alzheimer's is preventable and it is even reversible. In fact, we are reversing Alzheimer's in my medical clinic here in Florida. My partner and medical director is Dr. Josh Helman, a medical doctor trained at Harvard who specializes in preventing and reversing Alzheimer's disease, and we are reversing Alzheimer's in our patients. If you'd like to learn more about working with us to both prevent Alzheimer's and even reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with other forms of dementia, we would love to hear from you and send you some free information so you can learn what we are doing and see if it's a fit for you to come down and work with us in our clinic. We also work with other clinics around the country to help patients both prevent Alzheimer's as well as to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse memory loss associated with dementia. So if you'd like to learn more, go to brainpowerclinics.com. Go to brainpowerclinics.com and then enter your information. We will send you some free information, and then we hope to work with you, if we can be helpful to you, to help you prevent and reverse Alzheimer's disease.
So I love how you said the seed oils. These are the corn oil, the sunflower oil, the safflower oil, the canola oil. Basically, the oils that are used in processed foods. These are made at really high temperatures, and it ruins any nutrition they have, and they oxidize really quickly. And they're also, some of them are unnatural to our body, and we can't process them. They're kind of stuck in our bodies.
Right. But also what's interesting is in the last 100 years in the United States, the amount of oil in the American diet has gone up by a factor of 20 times.
My gosh.
Yeah.
in the last 100 years. So,
Yeah.
so that may be one reason they were not seeing a lot of dementia or Alzheimer's 100 years ago.
Yeah, and sugar. Gosh, what's sugar done since 100 years?
Yeah, sugar's gone straight up. Actually, I've got a graph going back a few hundred years. It's gone straight up, certainly in the last 100 years.
Yeah, I think it went from like 2 or 3 pounds a year to like 40 pounds a year.
Or more.
Just
Yes.
a disturbing amount. Thankfully.
Right. And we understand why they add that to processed foods. It actually makes it taste better, and it's a preservative. But the problem is it does havoc on our blood vessels, inflammation, and then that's one of the reasons we're seeing increased inflammation in the brain.
And so let's talk some more really, really good foods. So the bad foods are like the processed foods, the ultra processed foods, the sodas, the snacks, the high sugar foods. What are some of your favorite good foods? Do you like blueberries? Do you like walnuts? Do you like coconut yogurt? What are some of your favorite brain healthy foods?
Yeah, so I like those. I'll be upfront. I'm not a big fan of coconut or coconut oil because it's high in saturated fat. I know it's controversial. There are people out there promoting coconut oil, but I definitely like blueberries, strawberries, mangoes, walnuts, chia seeds. Yeah, all those things. Flax seeds.
Fantastic. One of the very best things that the research has shown to be really good for the brain is exercise. By the way, this is a litmus test for those of you who consult your medical doctor. Ask them, is there anything I can do to reduce the risk of Alzheimer's? If they don't say exercise, please seek another doctor. By the way, I'm not a medical doctor, not giving you medical advice. Dr. Josh is a medical doctor. But if they don't know that exercise reduces the risk of dementia, they are not qualified to help you, because this has been in the literature for the last at least 12 years, if not the last 20 years. And your medical doctor needs to know that when you exercise in a safe way, this reduces the risk of dementia. So Dr. Josh, what are some of what's your take on exercise, and what forms of exercise do you like for people for improving brain health?
Yeah, Robert, I agree with you that exercise is one of the key things that you can do to improve the health of your brain, improve the blood supply to your brain. And actually, when you exercise, your brain produces BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic growth factor, which actually creates new neurons and new neural synaptic connections. So I'm a big fan of exercise. The three types of exercise I think are key. One is building muscle. The next one is cardio, getting your heart going fast. And number three is balance. I think a healthy exercise regimen would have all three components. But to tell everyone out there to go swimming, if you can't go swimming, then you'd be like, I'm not going to do this. So the key is, and I would also say, try to do this every single day.
That's great. I love the work from our colleague, Dr. Heather Sanderson, who talked about dual task exercise. So the idea of exercising your physical body while exercising your brain. So you can listen to a podcast that's educational while you're walking, for example, or on the treadmill. Or you can have a conversation with someone while walking in the park, and you can identify trees and leaves. Or you could ask them, who are, can you name the presidents in order? I can't. At least I can't now. But you can ask memory related things, which can be really easy. A lot of people. Heather shared the story that a grandmother and her granddaughter would go walking, and the granddaughter would say, "Okay, who lives in that house?" And then what are the children's names, and what are their birthdays? And so if you're someone who likes to collect birthdays, my mother's really good with birthdays. That's a fun thing to review with people while you're taking a walk: names, dates, facts, and so forth. So exercising your brain while you're exercising your physical body is really good.
And Heather was able in her clinical study to show 78% of the patients in her study actually had improved brain function. And it totally makes sense to, while you're exercise, trying to do something else with your brain, because guess what? When you're exercising, you're releasing more of this BDNF, which in turn is creating more neurons and neural connections. It makes sense that you're going to ask the brain to actually do something to use and create these new neural connections, because it's not enough to have the raw ingredients. You actually have to ask the brain to do a specific task. So that's why I love doing two things at once. Now, obviously, I don't want you bouncing on a high wire while trying to, in a dangerous situation. But
You bounce into high wire while listening to our podcast. That'd be amazing. I would like to thank our sponsor, Optimizers. They make great supplements that are good for your brain and good for your overall body as well. My favorite supplement that they make is Masszymes. This contains digestive enzymes that help break down fat, protein, and carbohydrates. I love taking this in the morning with my bulletproof coffee, which has a lot of fat in it, so it helps break down the fat. And I like to take this at night before my largest meal, which is dinner, to help break down the fat and protein and carbs from my biggest meal. If you'd like to try this, you can try this risk-free and get 10% off. So to get that, go to buyoptimizers.com/love, and you can try this or any of their great supplements and save 10%. So physical exercise increases a growth factor in the brain called BDNF, Brain-Derived Neurotrophic Factor. You don't need to remember that. What I want you to remember is physical exercise increases growth factors that facilitate the growth of new brain cells and the repair of the brain. So physical exercise actually helps repair your brain directly. There's a direct connection neurochemically that we can point to. So this is just one of the many reasons why exercise is so good for your brain. By the way, lion's mane, which is a supplement that I really like, that I have a great version of that. That also increases BDNF. Curcumin can increase BDNF. Other supplements can increase BDNF. And as a bonus, curcumin will also decrease inflammation. Right. And so will lion's mane. So I hope you get this idea. You want to increase BDNF and you want to decrease inflammation. Those are two major mechanisms that you can use. And you can do these things for free by reducing your stress, improving your sleep, getting your exercise. These will increase BDNF and lower inflammation. Dr. Josh, your thoughts on racket sports. And then we're going to go into a really controversial section about prescription drugs and prescription drugs that can increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So what are your thoughts on racket sports?
Yeah, so the studies show that racket sports are actually the most productive for improving brain function. But if you think about racket sports are great because you're basically doing all three things. There's coordination and balance. There's cardio because you got to run from one side of the court to the other, and then there also is strength involved too. So I like racket sports because you're actually doing all three at the same time.
I totally. And then socializing, right? You're socializing with people. I set up a little ping pong table in my house against a wall. So in between breaks of work, I can work both hands. I'm using both hands playing a little ping pong.
Right, but not just socializing. There's also strategy. So you've actually got to be thinking ahead. Like, is he going to hit it over here and over there? And what am I going to do if this happens?
Yeah, it's really great. So Dr. Josh, as a medical doctor, a lot of medical doctors prescribe prescription drugs. Some of these drugs, many of these drugs, in fact, almost all of them have some sort of side effect. Some of them are mild, some of them are moderate, some of them are severe. What, from your experience and understanding the biochemistry and the data, what are prescription drugs that increase the risk of Alzheimer's disease? And then we'll talk about what other people's options are. But let's get out kind of these categories of drugs that people can be prescribed by well-meaning doctors, but that can increase the risk of dementia. So the patient needs to be informed about this.
Yeah, so one category was actually mentioned in the question, which are antihistamines or anticholinergics, which specifically decrease the amount of acetylcholine in the brain. And we know that acetylcholine is a very important neurotransmitter. And, the question is, if you have to take an anticholinergic, is there something else that you can do? Yes, there are. But so, for example, if you have to do that, I would say take some lion's mane, take some omega-3s, do other things to decrease your risk. But to my mind, if you're already taking something to decrease acetylcholine, guess what? If you try to increase the acetylcholine a different way, you're basically going to counteract that drug.
And what are these anticholinergic drugs? So I want to make sure everyone hears the drugs. So we got the word choline in there, right? So acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter. Anticholinergic drugs are drugs that block acetylcholine. If you want to if that's the language that we're using. So what are some of these anticholinergic drugs that people may have heard of?
Right. So, and there are many, and some of them are over the counter and some of them are prescription. So a very common one is called Benadryl or diphenhydramine. And that's used for allergies. And let's just be clear, if you have an acute allergic reaction, definitely take Benadryl. I'm not saying never take Benadryl. What I'm saying is you don't want to be on this class of drug chronically in high amounts every day. So if you're currently taking Benadryl, that's fine, but I would figure out a way to wean off. Another common class in the anticholinergics are some of the psych medications like Seroquel. And
really, I was prescribed Seroquel when I was in graduate school with my ADHD. Seroquel is an anticholinergic. I didn't know that.
Yeah, but there are literally 100 different ones. It's not just one or two.
And so the question you want to ask your medical doctor when you're prescribed a drug is, does this drug affect acetylcholine? Write that down. Does this drug affect acetylcholine? If so, how? And then can patients request a different drug from their doctors?
Sure. What you'd say is, is there another drug that would do something similar to this that doesn't have the anticholinergic effects? And often the answer is yes. But most physicians are not primed to even think about this or look at this.
Other drugs. So anticholinergic drugs, Benadryl, that's a major one. What are some other drugs that people should be aware of that can increase the risk of Alzheimer's?
Sure. And this is controversial, but I would argue statins.
Yeah.
The cholesterol drugs, the different statin drugs, unfortunately can cause dementia that in many cases are reversible if you stop them. But I think there are better and safer ways to lower cholesterol than lovastatin or these other statin drugs.
Now, why do statin drugs increase the risk of Alzheimer's?
It's for basically two different reasons. Number one, the statins decrease the amount of an important cofactor called CoQ10, coenzyme Q10. And coenzyme Q10 is responsible and helpful for the normal mitochondrial function in almost every cell of the body. The mitochondria do two really important things. They produce energy and they reduce toxins. They push toxins out.
They reduce toxins. Interesting.
So what happens is if you start taking if you start taking a statin, what you're ending up doing is you're hurting your mitochondrial function. So that's why I normally recommend people ask for a different strategy to lower their cholesterol if that's what they need to do.
So you mentioned there's two reasons statins impair.
Right.
Is it one, it reduces CoQ10? Is there another reason?
Yeah. The other one is it specifically does damage to mitochondria.
So they indirectly damage mitochondria by lowering CoQ10, and they directly damage mitochondria?
Correct.
Can I ask you about the function of cholesterol in the body?
Sure. Yeah. So cholesterol is very important in basically every cell wall. So whether we're talking the brain or anywhere else in your tissue, the cholesterol is a fatty molecule that actually affects the fluidity of the cell membranes in your body. So it's essential to life. The good news is we can make enough cholesterol on our own. We don't normally need it through food sources. So one easy way to lower your cholesterol is just to cut out animal products because there's no cholesterol in plants.
So pretty much every cell in our body, aside from red blood cells, makes cholesterol. That's my understanding. So this is
right. But just to be clear, even red blood cells, if you actually look at the lipid bilayer surrounding the red blood cell, you'll find cholesterol in there too.
Okay. So, but almost every cell in our body makes cholesterol, so it's really important.
Right.
And is every cell made out of cholesterol?
Yes.
So neurons, red blood cells, skin tissue, it's all made out of cholesterol.
Correct. So cholesterol is one of the components of the fatty membranes
of the phospholipid bilayer of the surrounding.
Correct.
And then they're also involved in hormone production, right?
True. Yeah.
So cholesterol really important for a healthy human. And so the idea of artificially suppressing cholesterol production might not be a good idea.
Right. And if you look historically, the reason statins were actually developed many, many decades ago is there are people who have a genetic disorder where they produce way too much cholesterol. So this drug was specifically designed for those people. And then after it started being used in the rare people with the very high cholesterols, we're like, well, why don't we start using this on everyone? And I think that's where we got into the problems.
And then the pharmaceutical lobbied to lower the healthy amount of cholesterol. Remember in the 80s and 90s, it was 300?
That sounds right.
Total cholesterol is 300. And then now it's like 250 or 240. I went in to get a blood test and it said my cholesterol is high because it was like 280 or 290. I thought, are you kidding me? You telling me I have high cholesterol? You should see the food that I eat, my exercise routine, my sleep routine. If I have high cholesterol, everybody's sick in the US because I do so much to stay healthy and I'm very healthy. And so I kind of laughed at that report. I said, look, the markers of healthy are off because the pharmaceutical lobby wants everyone to have high cholesterol. So that way everyone takes a statin drug. Does that make sense? They tried to move the line of what healthy is. So that way doctors say, oh, your cholesterol is higher than 280. We got to get you on a statin drug because that's what the number is now. And when you make everybody sick, everyone gets prescribed prescription drugs. And then a lot of people make money off of people taking prescription drugs. That's kind of the game that we've played. By the way, I want you to know that pharmaceutical companies are the largest sponsor of legacy media being the news. And so when you look at the news is information sponsored by Big Pharma. And you know this because you'll see Big Pharma commercials on there, right? Those are the sponsors. And so if you doubt that,
right. And we're talking like 20%, like 1 in 5 ads are going to be to support Big Pharma.
They are the biggest sponsor. And so they run news stories that support pharmaceuticals, right? So if Dr. Josh and I wrote a paper and said, look, lion's mane in combination with exercise dramatically lowers the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Here's our data. Or if we said, we have a new prescription drug that helps reduce the risk of Alzheimer's, which story are they going to run? Clearly, they're going to run the pharmaceutical one because their sponsors are pharmaceuticals. There's so many health interventions that are natural and safe and free that they don't talk about in legacy media because their sponsors are Big Pharma. So I just want you to have the framework in your mind here on out until something changes. Mainstream legacy media is basically information Big Pharma wants you to know. It's information sponsored by Big Pharma, which is why you don't know the things Dr. Josh is sharing about these prescription drugs and how they increase the risk of dementia.
But to put in a disclosure, I'm not against all prescription drugs. There is a place for them, but yeah, it's like you have to be knowledgeable and your doctor has to be knowledgeable to pick the right one.
Absolutely. Any other drugs that you want to share that increase the risk of Alzheimer's? You talked about anticholinergics and you talked about statins.
So another big class to avoid from a brain perspective are the proton pump inhibitors.
PPIs.
Yes. Things like Protonix, Prevacid, and some of those are over the counter. Some of them are prescription depending on the dose. But what those do, not only do they decrease the amount of acid in your stomach, which sometimes can be a good thing, but it leads to increased amyloid deposition in your brain. So again, I'm not saying never take a proton pump inhibitor, but it should not be a regular daily part of your regime because long-term that could lead to dementia.
I'm sorry, I wrote down the second part. It increases amyloid in the brain. What else does it do?
Yeah, well, it decreases acid in the stomach, which can lead people to problems with bacterial overgrowth in the gut because we're actually designed to have an acidic stomach.
So proton pump inhibitors increase amyloid deposition in the brain. And we're going to talk about amyloid plaque in a moment because there's a great misconception about this in the science. And then number 2, it decreases acid in the stomach. Does that impair gut bacteria?
It can, yes.
And how important is it to have healthy gut bacteria?
It's super important because it turns out that if you do not have a healthy gut, if you have specifically a leaky gut, almost everyone with a leaky gut has a leaky brain. So even though anatomically there are different parts of the body, it's actually this very same protein that's responsible for having a barrier both in the gut and in the brain.
Can we talk about that for a moment? So you've mentioned, so gluten can increase gut-brain permeability, zonulin. Can you talk a little bit about this mechanism so that way people can understand, okay, if I eat bread, how does that affect gut permeability? Then why does that affect the blood-brain barrier and what can get across my brain? I know we're talking about some kind of complex issues here, gut permeability and then the blood-brain barrier. There's a barrier that protects your brain from toxins. It's called the blood-brain barrier. And certain things can make it more permeable so that things can cross it. By the way, alcohol crosses very easily because alcohol crosses into the brain very easily. Other drugs, not as easily. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So Dr. Josh, can you talk about what happens when we eat gluten? So what happens when we eat bread, and how does that affect? How does that affect?
And just to be clear, gluten is not just in most breads; it's also added by the processed food companies in licorice and many other junk foods to actually make it addictive. Because when you eat gluten, it ends up getting converted in your body, in your brain, to morphine type addictive compounds. So yeah, but you were asking specifically, what effect does gluten have on the gut? And unfortunately, the gluten stimulates an immune response from the body. And then your immune system then attacks the lining of your gut, leading to a leaky gut. But it also can cause inflammation in the brain. And that's my point, is that we are what we eat, and if you're eating things that are highly inflammatory, including gluten, that can lead to a leaky gut and a leaky brain.
This is really important information. So, what steps we can take to prevent Alzheimer's? And then we're going to talk about what we're doing in our clinic and how we are reversing Alzheimer's in our clinic. So we're going to get to that. So those of you who want to learn about specifically what we're doing in our clinic, we will share that. And I want to make sure everyone gets the information on what you can do right now to help reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and start improving your memory based upon the science. So Dr. Josh, what are your, what are your steps for helping someone prevent Alzheimer's and the behaviors that have been shown to help reverse Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so actually we just talked about 3 different medication classes that can lead to Alzheimer's. Let's talk about one that actually decreases your risk of Alzheimer's. And what I'm talking about there are the PDE5, things like Viagra or Cialis actually have been shown. Men who take Viagra have actually been shown to have a lower risk of Alzheimer's or dementia. And the reason for that, I believe, is that the Viagra type compounds increase the amount of nitric oxide. And you can tell my 2 degrees of biochemistry are coming through. Nitric oxide is a simple gas. It's just one nitrogen and one oxygen atom stuck together. That molecule, the nitric oxide, opens up blood vessels. And as we get older, say over the age of 25, people's nitric oxide levels go down. So that's why I think men who take Viagra have lower risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. And I actually recommend that you go see your doctor to get a prescription, a lower dose one, for Viagra, Cialis, something of that class. And that I also recommend people take nitric oxide supplements and chew leafy greens, which will increase your nitric oxide levels too.
That's excellent. Do you know what the low dose is for women? Women ask me this often.
Yeah, so I would normally take about a quarter of the standard adult male dose.
Okay. I don't know what that is.
And it's going to vary by the medicine. So Viagra has a different dose than Cialis, etc.
And Viagra is safe for women.
I believe it is, especially if you're using a lower dose. But again, just to be clear, this is an off-label use. This is not FDA approved for preventing Alzheimer's or dementia.
No, it should be. I mean, frankly, this would be the best thing for them to do, is to use this for this, really help people. Something that I forgot to mention, I know people want the list of what you like for the brain, what you take. And so let's give people, I'd love to hear, let's start with your top 5. What are your top 5 supplements that you like for preventing Alzheimer's and improving memory?
Sure. So for me, it would be lion's mane, omega-3, NMN, and creatine. And there's so many to put in the 5th one. Let's go with Hanokial or Honopure. But I mean, I could go on. I love rosemary essential oil or Spanish sage. I mean, there's so many. But what I would say is, I just spouted off more than 5. But just as a precaution, I don't like people starting, 5 or 10 supplements or medications all at once. Go low, go slow, start one at a time, just so you understand how you react. And of course, a nitric oxide supplement would be amazing too.
So let's go through these one by one. What are the benefits of lion's mane?
Yeah, so lion's mane is amazing because it has clinically been shown to reverse Alzheimer's in a clinical study. That was a dose of 1,000 milligrams a day. It decreases inflammation. I think the reality is we don't know all the mechanisms, but lion's mane is amazing.
Yes, it's similar to exercise. There's so many benefits of exercise. We actually don't know all the things it does, but it does a lot. I love the benefit of lion's mane for sleep. So if you're struggling with sleep, lion's mane can help you with that, and we know how important that is for the brain. I would like to thank our sponsor, Roar Lion's Mane. Actually learned about lion's mane from Dave Asprey. He talked about how lion's mane improves sleep and increases vivid dreams. I got some lion's mane, and within 2 weeks, I noticed it improved my sleep. I've struggled with sleep for years because of my ADHD. This helped me sleep better and fall asleep faster, and I've had vivid dreams since then. This is about 5 years ago. Since then, I found my own lion's mane. I now make my own lion's mane supplement. That's not only lion's mane, but it's a combination of 10 medicinal mushrooms that are really great at improving memory, reducing stress and anxiety, improving brain health, and improving sleep. And right now, when you get my lion's mane, you get a free physical copy of Dave Asprey's new book. This is a $28 value. Yours absolutely free when you try my lion's mane risk-free, because it comes to unconditional 6-month unconditional money-back guarantee. So to try my lion's mane risk-free and get a free physical copy of Dave Asprey's book, $28 value, go to robertlove.net and click the link that says Roar Lion's Mane to get yours while supplies last. Omega-3s, why are those helpful? And then what dose do you like?
Yeah, so for omega-3s, I like actually 3,000 milligrams or 3 grams a day if I'm trying to reverse Alzheimer's or prevent it. And
is that DHA and EPA?
Yeah, it's DPA, DHA, and EPA. I like all 3 of those. And I personally like algae oil. I'm a little bit concerned about just taking flaxseed oil. I don't know that some people can convert that to the EPA and DHA. Yeah, and again, like we talked about earlier, the reason omega-3 is powerful for the brain is it helps decrease inflammation.
It's also good for the heart health, right?
True. And the truth is it's basically good for every organ, not just those 2.
What about the DHA as a building block for healthy brain cells?
It is, but it turns out that EPA is also important too.
Okay. So both DHA and EPA are good for healthy cells, healthy brain cells. Next was creatine. Was creatine the next one on the list?
Yeah.
So why is creatine? You've been a fan of creatine for a long while, and you were kind of before this got really viral. Creatine's gotten viral in the last 6 months. You were up this a year ago or longer before everyone was talking about this. So why do you like creatine so much?
Yeah, many reasons. Number one, in general terms, it is an anti-aging supplement, meaning it turns back your biologic clock. That's number one. Number two, historically, for decades, it's been used by bodybuilders to increase muscle mass. And yes, 95% of the creatine in your body is going to be in muscles. But what we've learned recently is that 5% of the creatine is actually in your brain as a neurotransmitter. So I love it for preventing and reversing Alzheimer's because specifically creatine can improve neural connections in the connections that rely on it as a neurotransmitter.
This is perhaps the least expensive, safest, most effective thing you can start with. Creatine monohydrate is what you want. And then Dr. Josh, is there a dose that you like?
I like, for creatine, I like 5 grams a day. Now, you don't have to start there, but I like at least 5 grams a day.
So creatine, great place to start. I don't have a creatine supplement. I hope to have one soon, but get started on creatine. It's extremely safe. It's the most studied. I think it's the most studied supplement on planet Earth because it's been studied for decades on sports performance. And now we're doing cognitive performance stuff. It's great. Any contraindications for taking creatine, Dr. Josh?
I wouldn't call it a contraindication, but it's an awareness that if you choose to supplement with creatine, which I recommend most adults do, that when you do a blood test to measure your kidney function, most doctors will look at a metabolite of creatine called creatinine. And guess what? If you're taking creatine, the metabolite of creatinine will be high. And if they don't know that you're taking creatine, they'll say, oh no, your kidneys aren't working. No, your kidneys are working fine. But just to be on the safe side, right, a few days before you get your blood drawn for a medical test, I would stop the creatine just so that your doctor doesn't go crazy, like, look how high your creatinine is. Like, well, yeah, it's a metabolite. So
just sort of creatine as a metabolite of creatinine. So when you test your blood or your urine, it shows high creatinine. That's different than creatine, but it's basically a byproduct of breaking it down. Is that right?
100%. It's, if you look at the metabolic pathway, another great reason that creatine is helpful for metabolism is if any of you have a high level of inflammatory amino acid called homocysteine, it turns out that creatine will lower homocysteine.
Really? I didn't know creatine lowers homocysteine.
Right. So if you actually look at the metabolism of creatine, it takes a homocysteine molecule, so it will decrease your homocysteine level.
That's totally fun, because we've been talking about homocysteine because high levels of homocysteine are a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease and heart disease. And methylated B complex vitamins are really helpful lowering that. So, but also creatine's helpful in lowering homocysteine. Oh, that's amazing.
Right. So behind the scenes, that may be what's going on. Some of the benefits of creatine may have to do with the homocysteine metabolism.
Lowering homocysteine, that's awesome. So last, we're going to talk about NMN. NMN's really interesting. Can we go deep on NMN? Because NMN is both great for the brain, great for the heart, and it's really good for anti-aging. I'd love to touch on all three of those. So Dr. Josh, why is NMN one of your top supplements for the brain and for anti-aging?
Yeah, so for me, I love NMN because it stimulates in three of the primitive anti-aging pathways that are conserved in all animals, including us. So NMN will increase the amount of NAD, which I know is alphabet soup. NAD is an important mitochondrial cofactor. So basically what NMN is doing is it's optimizing the energy production in your cells. And by doing that, it's turning back your biological aging clock, including in your brain.
And so it helps you have a younger brain, younger body, younger mitochondria. And can you talk about the anti-aging pathways? So it works by repairing DNA. It works by can you talk about the other mechanisms?
Sure. So the DNA is the sirtuin pathway. You can also look up something called AMPK, and then the third one is mTOR. So the cool thing is NMN will optimize all three of those pathways.
Amazing. NMN is banned by the FDA
in the United States. So, for example, on Amazon you can get NMN in almost any other country except the United States. But the good news is we have an NMN supplement that we were ahead of the curve. We're like, let's just protect this for ourselves.
Absolutely. So about a year ago, Dr. Josh and I said, hey, let's make an NMN supplement and let's make the best one. And we added methylated B complex vitamins and something called trimethylglycine to optimize the function of NMN in your body. And we have the right dose, which is 1,000 milligrams. And we made this for ourselves and our families. And then we found a manufacturer that would make it for us so that we would have it. And so it's really hard to buy in the United States. Amazon won't sell it anymore. Walmart stopped selling it, but it is legal to buy in the US, but it's very difficult to find.
For many people, I would recommend starting at 1,000 milligrams a day, but the reality is everyone's going to need a little bit different. Some people need 750 milligrams. Some people might need 1,500 milligrams. And how do you know if you have enough? Well, if you find that you can't go to sleep at night, you probably have a little bit too much. So I would normally recommend taking half your dose first thing when you wake up and the other half around noon.
And make sure if you take NMN, so I would look for 1,000 milligrams in the supplement. Otherwise, they're not giving you kind of the full dose. By the way, as in Hong Kong, they sell it in the drugstore in Hong Kong. They had 15 different NMNs on there. It's really popular in Asia. And then number two is look for NMN beta. NMN beta, that is the shelf-stable form of NMN. Otherwise, it could degrade on the shelf. Tony Robbins talked about this, or David Sinclair talked about this, how people would buy NMN and they have it tested at zero, not because there wasn't NMN in it, but it degraded by the time they got it. So you want NMN beta, which is the shelf-stable NMN. So Dr. Josh, we've gone on a lot longer than I thought, but I want to make sure that we deliver on our promise. Let's talk about how to prevent the steps on how to prevent and reverse Alzheimer's, which we talked about them kind of individually. Let's talk about all those steps together, and then let's tell people how we are reversing Alzheimer's in our clinic for those who'd like to learn more. So Dr. Josh, what, from your perspective, what are the steps people need to take to prevent and reverse Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so what I would do is layer everything that we've talked about here. So that includes optimizing the lifestyle, getting enough sleep, reducing your stress, eating low inflammatory foods, having a sense of community, definitely exercising, taking smart supplements, not being on medications or over-the-counter compounds that will increase inflammation.
All right, so first I want to get the lifestyle stuff that we've talked about. So everyone, wherever you are as far as your health, whether you have early stage memory loss or whether you just want to live a long, healthy life, this is where you want to start. So one, we talked about exercise, right? We want muscle building exercise. Remember, increasing BDNF. 2, we talked about dual task exercise. 3, cardiovascular. And then 4, racket sports are fun. Number 2 is sleep. We really want to improve your sleep. That's where you grow new brain cells. That's where you wire up new memories. Number 3, reducing your stress. Number 4, eating low inflammatory foods. Number 5, a good sense of community. A lot of people miss this. Community reduces stress, improves our satisfaction in life and our quality of life and our sense of well-being, and really increases our immune system. By the way, loneliness is worse for your immune system than smoking cigarettes. So if all your friends smoke cigarettes and that's the only time to hang out with them, it's actually better to smoke cigarettes and have friends than to be alone and not smoke cigarettes. That's how bad loneliness is, according to research from Dr. Daniel Goleman, who wrote Emotional Intelligence. Good supplements that we talked about, we listed those: lion's mane, creatine, NMN, nitric oxide, fish oil, or omega-3s. And then 6, not taking prescription drugs that hurt your brain, right? The statins, the cholinergics. Of course, check with your medical doctor first. Ask for drugs that can still help you, but not increase the risk of Alzheimer's. And before we go there, I really want to be clear. The low-hanging fruit and the high-leverage stuff to do is the diet and exercise and sleep and behavior. In fact, a drug company came up to us and said, hey, we're noticing better results when we're having our patients take supplements and diet and exercise. And Dr. John,
no surprise.
We're looking at each other, we're like, oh, that's good to know. We thought, right?
Who'd have thought? Yeah.
So that's where to start. Please, that is where you want to start. So, by the way, for those of you interested, I'm going to put our website here. You can go to our website and sign up for more information. You can download our free report, and or you can just enter your information, and then we'll send you a video on this new prescription drug and how it works. And then you get emails from Dr. Josh and me about our medical clinic and how we can help you. And so our website is brainpowerclinics.com. And then please, and if you want more information about this, please go to the site and click learn more and enter your email address and your name, and we'll follow up with you, and we'll send you free videos that you can watch with your family to help you make a decision about, is this of interest to you? And then we can then you can schedule a call with someone on our team. I think right now, if Jill still has room on her calendar, it's Jill, who's been with us for 2 years. She's been with me for 3 years. She's been with us for 2 years, and she's fantastic. She can tell you about that. So a lot of people mistake amyloid for Alzheimer's. Can you explain the relationship of amyloid and Alzheimer's?
So amyloid is actually formed by the brain as a protective mechanism. Amyloid is antibacterial, and so it's basically the brain's way of healing damaged areas. So unfortunately, if you come with an antibody against amyloid, which some of these newer medications, not the ones we're using, but when you quickly try to dissolve the amyloid, that's what's causing the swelling and the bleeding of the brain. And actually, it's causing decreased volume of the brain too. It's actually causing tissue damage. So yeah, so there's this whole amyloid theory that I first heard about maybe 20 years ago at Harvard. And at the time, I had all these researchers were really excited. We found the cause of Alzheimer's. It's amyloid, and we're going to make drugs against amyloid. And guess what? Hundreds of trials later, billions of dollars spent later. In my opinion, we don't have a good cure for Alzheimer's that's focused on the amyloid. So, and frankly, it's you can have Alzheimer's without amyloid. You could have bad amyloid and not have Alzheimer's. So, I think it's a case of wishful thinking, because now it's true in many cases of Alzheimer's, you see both amyloid and tau proteins, but yeah, I don't think that they're the cause of the Alzheimer's. It's more of an effect. So that's why trying to target specifically something like amyloid, which is your body's response to injury, that's not going to help.
So inflammation, by the way, increases amyloid plaque in the brain. Toxins increase amyloid plaque in the brain. Traumatic brain injury increases amyloid plaque in the brain.
Not getting enough sleep causes increased amyloid in the brain the next day.
It's great points. Just one day of bad sleep increases amyloid plaque in the brain. I don't know about heavy drinking. I'm at my 20-year college reunion. It starts tomorrow. Amazing. It's been 20 years. I don't know how this happened.
I would like to thank our sponsor, Microingredients. All of Microingredients products are third-party tested, so you know they are the highest quality. I've been using Microingredients products for the past 2 years before they were sponsored the show because they are so high quality. They have a great collagen supplement. This helps reduce wrinkles. Great for your skin, hair, and nails. MCT oil is great for your brain. I love to add this to my coffee. Collagen's also good in the coffee. The organic blueberry mix, I add that to my smoothies and desserts. Their new curcumin supplement is excellent. MCT oil is one of my favorites. It stands for medium chain triglyceride oil. This is basically coconut oil on steroids. When you add this to your coffee, it basically replaces dairy in your coffee. That's really good for you. And the MCT oil becomes energy for your brain. And so people notice an improvement in memory. They notice improvement in brain fog. Research in patients with Alzheimer's disease who take MCT oil, it improves their memory. Dr. Dale Bredesen, who wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's, recommends 3 tablespoons of MCT oil a day. Don't start there. Start smaller and then work up. If you take too much, you can get disaster pants. This is my favorite MCT oil. Let me tell you why. Number 1, USDA organic coconuts, very important. Number 2, it is third-party tested like all Microingredients products. Number 3, it's a powder. So the powder is more gentle on your stomach than the MCT oil liquid. So this is great. And then lastly, it has prebiotic fiber. So it feeds your good gut bacteria. If you'd like to try some of Microingredients MCT oil, go to Amazon and then search MCT oil and then use the code RobertLove at checkout to save 10%.
And I drank way too much in college. I drank dangerous amounts of alcohol regularly in college. I don't know to what extent that increased amyloid plaque in my brain when I was younger. I don't know about that data, but I imagine it's certainly a bad idea. So basically, things that impair the brain, impair brain function, many of those likely increase amyloid plaque in the brain, like poor quality sleep and inflammation. And so let's talk a little bit more about how we're helping patients. And so what else do people need to know, Dr. Josh, about how we're working with patients?
We were counseling and helping people have the right lifestyle to reverse and prevent the disease outlay too.
So we're combining lifestyle with prescription drugs. When we started this company, so when we first started this clinic, I said, we don't want to just be given drugs because that's not nearly as helpful to people. We want to do the behavior and the drug. Let's talk about some of the results we're seeing in our patients. So oftentimes after the first infusion, and it is an IV drip that we're doing an IV infusion, people show improvements within the first 2 days of having received the treatment.
And you're exactly right. Some people are showing improvement within a day or two. And often that will last certainly the first month. But to be clear, just like every case of Alzheimer's is different, the response is going to be different person to person. So it's not a linear straight line up of improvement. It's jagged, etc. So, but it is so rewarding basically giving people their brain back so that they can either go back to work or be functional in society again. It's really rewarding. And that's why we're here. We're here to communicate that there is hope, because unfortunately, if you talk to most physicians or most people in this country right now, what you hear is there is no hope. Sure, you can try this drug. It'll slow down the descent. Like, no, we don't want to just slow down the descent. We actually want to reverse course and give people their brain function back.
That reminds me. So so the New York Times recently, did I talk about the New York Times article?
I don't think so.
So the New York Times interviewed me for an article on reversing Alzheimer's. And I talked to the person for about an hour. They were very nice. And the article got published last week. And it was basically a hit piece on Dr. Dale Bredesen. And it ignored everything I shared about the work that we're doing, Dr. Josh, how we help people reverse memory loss with the Bredesen protocol, the work we're doing in our clinic, the results of our patients, and then just data. I wasn't mentioning the article. They didn't include any of that information. Instead, they focused on one couple where the woman had Alzheimer's, and they did the protocol, and basically it wasn't that helpful. And then at the end, they decided to stop. And so basically the conclusion of the article was it's expensive and hard to prevent and reverse Alzheimer's. So don't even try. And then the very end of the article, the woman is eating French fries and she's happy because she's eating French fries. And so the article says, so you might as well just eat your French fries. This is the worst piece of information published in legacy media on Alzheimer's disease that I've ever seen, because it ignores the vast amount of cases. It ignores all the people that he's helped. It ignores all the data and chooses one case where someone didn't get better. And by the way, these people say, we're glad we did this. We wanted to try. So they're glad they did it. And it's not even that expensive. They said they spend $1,200 a month on supplements, which is a lot. I don't know what they were buying. You don't need to spend much. You could do with $100 a month on supplements will get you there. These people, they spend $1,200 a month on supplements. If you do a nursing home is $10,000 to $15,000. $10,000 to $15,000. This is the program where if you do it for $1,200 a month, it might keep you out of the nursing home for a month or 2 or 3 or 10 or a year. It's so worth the money. And so this was a total hit piece on Dale Bredesen. It lacked scientific rigor. It called him Mr. Bredesen instead of Dr. Bredesen. He's a doctor. It's an awful, awful article. And it advises people to eat French fries. So I just want you to know that is the information that just got published last week. Interesting side note, I had Dr. Dale Bredesen on my podcast the day that article came out. So that's really funny timing. But I just want you to know that is the kind of information sponsored by big pharmaceutical companies, big food companies that are sponsoring legacy media that are affecting how you think and affecting how your doctors think. Because some doctor is going to read that and they're going to talk to their patient and say, do you know what? I read the Dr. Bredesen protocol. Isn't that effective?
It doesn't work.
That's what they're going to tell you. You can get the Bredesen protocol for $20. Buy his book and you can do the protocol for $20. And so it's a travesty that this kind of information is polluting the minds of doctors and patients as far as the effectiveness of the Bredesen protocol and the effectiveness of behavior. Does that make sense to everybody? This just happened. This is so current, and there's going to be medical docs who read that article are going to say, I guess I shouldn't recommend this program. It's a terrible mistake because it's good for you. It's healthy for pretty much every system in your body. It's very effective. 70% of people got better in Dr. Heather Sandison's study. 7 out of 10. Show me another drug that works on 7 out of 10 people. It's amazing.
Like at what stage does this work? In our experience so far, it works on any stage, from severe Alzheimer's to very mild. So the bottom line is, wherever you are in the disease process, there is hope.
Absolutely. That's what Dr. Bredesen says. He's like, look, I want you to know there's hope. Wherever you are, you can slow down the progress. You can stop the progress. You can get better. You can stay out of the nursing home for a week, a month, a year. Dr. Josh, would you talk about Susie and how she was before she took the treatment, and then how she was, 6 months after?
Yeah, I'll be upfront. With Susan, I was actually afraid for her because she lived alone and she was having progressively worse dementia. And I remember the very first time I met her in person, I asked her to complete a written intake form, and she couldn't do it. She couldn't follow that simple task. But we still were able to give her this new medication. And then I saw her back 1 month later, and not only did she say, "Hey, I'm more organized, I'm feeling better," she handed me her completed intake form. So it wasn't just talking; it was action. And but after the first dose, she wasn't 100%. That took many more doses. But after the 6 doses, she was back to her normal self. And that was, she whispered into my ear, you gave me my life back, Dr. Josh. And we did. And that's why we're still doing this.
By the way, according to Dr. Stephen Gundry, a famous heart surgeon, he shared that most medical practices are 20 years behind the cutting edge science. They're 20 years behind the data because it takes about 20 years for the research to be translated into the standard practice, right? The accepted practice.
Yeah, most physicians are not reading journal articles and going to cutting edge conferences.
So this is the cutting edge science available, and only a few doctors have access to it. Dr. Josh is one of the doctors that has access to it. Most of our patients get better. I can't say everyone's going to get better, but most of our patients get better and experience a significant benefit. And so it's cheaper than a nursing home, and you actually get better. So you can either spend your money, slowly losing your brain in a nursing home or a memory center, or you can invest your money to protect your brain and actually get it back and stay out of the memory center. And so if you want to learn more, if you or someone you love has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or is experiencing memory loss and you're over age 55, is 55 the age, Dr. Josh?
Correct. But if you're 54 or 53, it's not an absolute cutoff.
So basically, if you're over age 50 and have memory impairment, or you've been diagnosed with some form of dementia, or someone who has, go to brainpowerclinics.com, click learn more, enter information. We will send you information about the treatment. And then you can request a consult so that we can see if you're a good fit for what we're doing. It's not a fit for everyone. So for those of you interested in learning more, we have more free information for you at brainpowerclinics.com. And then I just want you to know, you are awesome. You are awesome because you took your time today to learn new things, which is great for your brain. You're taking the time to improve your diet, to improve your lifestyle. Stop eating the garbage foods. Stop listening to the pharmaceutical propaganda, which is the media, right? We know that's not helpful to you. What's helpful to you is the current science, which is Alzheimer's can be prevented. It can be reversed, many documented cases. And so you are doing great because you're focusing on your education and your brain and you're committing to it. So, I want to honor you for taking time during your day to learn, and then for taking the steps of doing the diet, the exercise, the sleep, and investing in your health. That is just fantastic.
That's great. Beautiful. As Lydia said, learn new things for sure. Yes. This whole program is designed to get you to learn new things. So thank you so much for your willingness to be focused on not just your own health, but that of loved ones.
Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Peace and plants.
And thank you, Dr. Josh. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Robert.